music professional.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Yes, Quit Your Day Job, real talk for music industry creatives. I'm your host, Sevan Dunbar, and today's episode is one I've been looking forward to. My guest is somebody who's been quietly shaping the underground scene in a big way. He's the founder of Sinister Salon, a space that's become so much more than just a hair salon. He's also the frontman for System 6, a band that doesn't just play music, it stands for something. Blake Attebury is my guest. We're talking about what it really means to build a community, how to create safe spaces for misfits and musicians, and the kind of leadership that doesn't come from ego, it comes from intention. So whether you're in a band, running a DIY space, or trying to figure out where you fit in, this one's for you. So let's get into it. Um, I guess first, for people who don't already know you, who is Blake?
Hey, how's it going? Blake Attebury, Sinister Salon, System 6. Pretty much hit the nail on the head there.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been a semi-pro musician 25 years. I've been an entrepreneur probably 15 to 18. I'm a single father. I've had full custody of my daughters since they're 5 and 7, and now they are 17 and 20. I've lived in Lawrence, Kansas, Wichita, Kansas, parts of Missouri, Dallas, Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, where I grew up. And then for the last 4 years, Las Vegas is where I call home. So,
very nice, very nice. How would you describe Sinister Salon to somebody who's never been? I see you're there right now, aren't you?
I am. Yeah, it's we're closed 7 minutes ago and still a little busy. You can see there. Sinister Salon was inspired by some other salons. Also, the people I hang out with, the places I go, the things I do. It's a goth, alternative, punkish, metal themed salon. We have all kinds of cool stuff on the wall, signed things, and rare artifacts from musicians. And we got here. And one thing that I was really intent on, like that was very important to me, is like we're pro LGBTQ, we're pro trans. Yep. So when we got here, a lot of places are very accepting, but instead of being accepting, I decided to make it like a part of our business, to be more than accepting, to be kind of celebrating. And in the same way, I worked for a business in Fort Worth where people would leave us bad reviews and they were fake. It was like people who didn't like us or like our style. And my salon owner at the time would reply back like, just kind of telling people off. And I was like, you can't do that. And she's like, well, yeah, sure you can. And then all of a sudden we had people showing up to like, I like that review. I like the way you talk to that person. I like the way you told them they're not going to talk to you that way. And so coming in here, one of the things that I've done that I've never really done with any other business, I'd like to brag and say I have, but I've really just leaned into everything that my gut tells me. I hire people out of school. I hire stylists other salons tell me not to. We talk about religion and politics constantly. We have a lot of sex workers here, and strippers, and again, people who are queer and trans, and people who maybe are new to Las Vegas. They don't know a lot of people who are, or at least feel like they're like on the fringe of society and don't really know where they fit in. So we just learned very quickly that I think anybody that's been in rock, metal, goth communities has felt that way before. So we learned really quickly that, just be nice to that people. And what it did is it really expanded our community and added different facets and people and referrals and references from places that we didn't really anticipate. So we've kind of become like a catch-all and been known for just like, if you're a misfit or you don't fit in or you do fit in, or we have famous musicians and we have, 14-year-olds who don't know how to tell their parents they're gay. And we have lawyers and doctors, and we have people that want purple skunk stripes. And, it's just kind of, we do a little bit of everything. And I think that's what we like, keeps things interesting.
Sure. I imagine that's got to be, from a business standpoint, a lot of people would think that would be a risky approach to just kind of unapologetically be yourself. Have you found that that's helped your business, or has it hurt you guys, or is it just kind of not really impacted you?
I mean, overall, I think it's helped a lot. I get messages all the time that we inspired people in other places to do so. You know, people open a trans or queer salon or a metal or goth salon somewhere in the Midwest where they don't have a large support group. And of course, you know, conservatives and Christians and, you know, people that follow MAGA and whatever, you know, they'll be rude to them or leave bad reviews or talk to them a certain way. And, you know, when something like that happens to your business, it's really devastating. I think it really kind of hurts your feelings in a very personal way. And so I've had people who are just like, you know, the easiest thing to do would be like, hey, you're not going to talk to me that way. Or I don't really care about your opinion because I don't need your business. And that sounds counterproductive because every business in the world is like every customer counts. And they do. Every customer does count. We appreciate anyone that's come here once and never come back. We appreciate people that come here all the time. We appreciate people that donate supplies and things to us, which I can get into about, you know, kind of our bathroom stock shelf. But at the end of the day, you realize that tolerating things that destroy part of your soul and character don't have a value. And I don't mean like they're priceless. Sure, they are at some point. That's why people are in terrible office jobs. They do have a value. But in this situation where we're all ourselves and where we all are supportive of other people, we just come to the conclusion that it's not worth it. You were already going to leave a bad review. You're already going to say something bad about us. You're already going to insult us, you know? So it's just kind of like that feeling like, you know, let's get it over with. And it is very challenging because every insult and every criticism feels very personal because you're not being a brand or you're not being a company, you know, you're all being a collective of people. And so this is my salon, but it's a collective of all the people that work here. And when people quit and new people work here, the dynamic changes, that collective changes. So it can be really hard, not in a business sense like you would think. That's what I thought too. It's more of like a personal sense. It hurts. It feels like a personal attack, you know. And some people come here and they don't get the haircut they wanted or the color they wanted or the price was too high or it was overstimulating or we use too much foul language. I mean, there's all kinds of valid things to say, but one of the hardest parts about putting yourself out there is having to own what you put out there. And as detrimental as that can be to your mental health or to your wallet or whatever, I feel so much better living my life this way. I wake up every morning and look at myself in the mirror and I'm proud of who we are and what we do. I can stand up for my stylist because I know what kind of Yeah. And I mean, look, here's the deal. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad or even popular. You can't do that without facing scrutiny. And I worked in a bunch of corporate jobs and spent my whole life people pleasing. And I'm finally in a place where I just go, no, I have no interest in that. I don't care. We're going to leave you a bad review. Okay. You know, we've taken bad reviews and made buttons out of them. We've made t-shirts out of them. We've made stickers out of them. And it's not like rage bait. Like we don't want people to do that, but it's almost, again, it's like, you know, one of those things like taking the power back. Like you can say whatever you want. I'm not going to call Google and try to get them to remove your review or call you and offer you some money or, you know, we're going to wear it. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. You know, sometimes I go to a restaurant and the food's really bad and you know what I do? I don't go back there. And life is really that easy. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that, I don't think.
Definitely. Was there a specific moment where you knew you wanted to build a place like this?
I mean, to be honest, I didn't have a place like this as a kid. I mean, I grew up as a teenager in Kansas and wearing makeup in the 90s in Wichita, Kansas went about as well as you'd think it would.
Sure.
And, you know, I've been a part of this since I was 14, a part of this culture. I felt like I belonged or identified with it. And even then, you know, we didn't have goth nights. We definitely didn't have a goth club. I hung out a lot at gay bars and queer bars where I could go in and wear makeup and not be judged or treated poorly. So, you know, again, I think for me, I'd love to have, you know, some sort of like hero complex or brag about myself and be like, oh, I did this for everybody else. I mean, that does play into it. But I also did it for me. If you walk in my salon, it feels like my house. This is an extension of who I am as a person. And I hope that through me being welcoming and accepting that other people feel that. I mean, you know, I don't want to just make music. I don't just want to do hair. I don't just want to have a job. I want to do something bigger than that. And I think to do something bigger than that, you have to be honest to yourself and you have to do it where and how you can. And this is what I know. It's what I believe in. It's my friends. It's my network of musicians and porn stars and people I know. And so it was really easy. And it was really easy to do all of this stuff and just kind of set it up that way.
Nice. Okay. A lot of people talk about community, but not everybody builds one. What made you like take that extra step to actually build a community for people?
Well, I mean, again, to be honest, there was some when I got here. But I've been overweight most of my life. I've been poor most of my life. When I was a kid, my dream was to go to LA and be part of the LA scene. But it's like, I was overweight for living in Kansas, let alone that. And when I came here, there was a good scene. There were great people, but there was also that vibe where it's like, you got to be cool enough and skinny enough and know the right people. And I kind of hated that. And I had a hard time finding that and fitting in. And so I just had some people kind of hung around. They're like, this is cool. And I was like, yeah, let's hang out. And they brought more people. And it was almost like, it was intentional, but it was almost like unintentional, because I didn't come here to be like, oh, I'm gonna come in here and change everything. But more so, when we opened up, and again, it's not me, it's my stylist and our clients. It felt like there was a space that was available that people wanted and needed that, was missing. So it was really easy to do.
Like very organic.
Yeah, I mean, Las Vegas is like the second fastest growing city in the U.S. So you had all these transplants, and they don't know anybody, and they don't know where to go, and there's a lot of people looking for people, and so was I, and it was very easy to do.
Gotcha. Have you ever had to draw any hard lines or kick someone out to protect that space?
Yeah, I mean, we do that all the time. We have, Christians and conservatives. We have people that are that don't agree with the LGBTQ lifestyle, that don't agree with some of the things we stand for and do. And I always tell people the same thing. Like, if you can be nice and quiet, I don't need to know that. The only reason I know that is because you let people know that. And it's like, same thing. It's one of the worst things I think, not to get too political. I am very political, but that's one of the worst things about MAGA is like, all these people start saying their feelings out loud. And it's like, I really liked you before I knew that. You don't have to share that you're hateful or racist or a bigot or anything else. You can just, shut up. And so we're very accepting of people if they're nice, be nice. And it's a lessons Mr. Rogers taught me. Is one of my big heroes of Mr. Rogers tattoos. And I'm like, yeah, just be nice to other people. But the instances I've had to kick people out of here are absolutely hilarious. My stylists were blown away at how abrasive I was. And, a lot of people come in here thinking it's a Walmart and they're going to push you around. This is what you're going to do. And I'm like, no, we're not, So there's a lot of those, but they're few and far between. I mean, it's not as often as you would think, but when they happen, they are hilarious because they are really dramatic, unfortunately.
Very cool. Well, shifting a little bit, tell us about System 6. Where did the idea start? How has it evolved?
Yeah, so I started System 6 when I was 15 years old. And, I had a bunch of band ideas. I had like 7 or 8 band names. And System 6 was the one I finally kind of settled on. There were a couple that I wrote out for like, half a year to a year and had banners and stuff made. But System 6 for me is like the 5 senses, and the 6 being like esoteric or occult or religious or spiritual or mental or energy or whatever. It always feels like I'm really not into a lot of like hippie type vibey stuff, but it always does feel like there's something right beyond the layer of things that we can really identify or understand that sort of impact and influence our lives. Like, I was friends with you for 20 plus years. We never met. And then all of a sudden, when I moved here, you were moving away, but we happened to be able to cross paths and just stuff like that, where it's like, well, that's a coincidence.
Like, what? Yeah.
The same day.
Like,
yeah. And it's like, there's coincidences and things happen, but no, 100%. But things like that to me are very interesting and very strange. I ask people all the time, can you imagine if we never met, And I like to think I'm a pretty creative person, but I can't. There's a lot of things in my life
that were really bad and very hard for me. And I can't imagine if that didn't happen to me, whether it's for the better or worse. It is part of who I am as a person, and it shaped who I am as a person. So that's System 6. That's the 6th.
Gotcha. Okay. How do you balance being an artist with being somebody who is, not just running a salon, but really kind of a fixture in the community? I just from our friendship, I know you're constantly either taking on getting involved in other businesses or exploring new businesses ideas. How do you balance all that with also being a creative artist?
Well, I mean, I would like to give a shout out to ADHD and autism because those have done really great things for me.
Sure.
People normally talk down or bad about their autism or ADHD, but I'm basically like wired all the time and ready to go. And then I also kind of read into things I don't think other people read into. So as far as how do I balance it, it's hard. There is no balance. It's kind of the same thing we were talking about community. I will be at home and hit a gap where I have an hour and 40 minutes, and I'll go to update all my Ableton and plugins, and then I'll get this new loading screen and it will tell me to check out this folder, and I'll load this preset. And I'm like, that sounds really cool. It gives me this idea. And then 7 hours later, I'll look up and I'll be like, I wrote 3 songs. And then
Yep.
that happens sometimes, not for months, not for half a year. Sometimes I want that outlet. I want to make music, but maybe because there's so many things going on at the business, or maybe being a father has been so challenging, or maybe my mental health or just things in my life aren't where I want them to be. So it's hard to want to be creative, even though I know it would be helpful. So the balance is challenging because I think a normal, sane person would be like, oh, I plan it and I set time aside and I do this and I do that. And I rarely do that. It's almost always with me either all or nothing. And there's some times where I go in and I work on my business for 7 hours and work on the website and redo the menu and go through everything and change our tax information and upload things and make sure everything's good with the state and do this. And then I don't do that again for 7, 8, 9 months, and
Wow.
why? I don't know. It's the same thing with music. I wish I could come up with a reason, because I would like some more balance, but as chaotic as this is, and as I feel like it does play some sort of negative toll on my life, it also allows me, to really immerse myself in whatever I care about at that moment. I don't have plans. I don't have band practice later. I don't have somewhere I have to be. I literally can be like, I feel like this right now, and this is what I'm going to do. And I think being creative, I can't think of anything more liberating, being creative, than being able to be like, this is what I want to do right now, and I'm going to go do it. And so, through chaos mainly.
Nice. You've talked a lot about the values of the salon. When it comes to your band, do you see a lot of those same values reflected in the band as well?
I mean, I do. And again, that's like really the hard thing. I always was inspired by bands like Marilyn Manson or Slipknot, or bands where it seemed like people were playing a character. I always, it's easy to see that freedom if you've ever done any acting, or if you've ever performed on stage or done anything. There is some freedom in not being yourself, but that's what all these things are, just extensions of me. And so, unfortunately, do I think I could get away from it? Yeah, but like my very first album I put out has a song on it called Faulty Five, which is a play on 45, which is a play on Donald Trump and
Oh, wow.
having faulty leadership. And that's my very first album I put out. So, it's not so much trying to tie them all together as it is like, again, just saying and doing kind of what I feel at the moment.
Hey there, it's Sevan. If you've been enjoying this episode so far, do us a favor, hit that follow button, leave a review, and share Yes, Quit Your Day Job with someone who needs to hear it. We're all about building community, just like Blake talked about. And that starts with you. Industry tip of the week. If you're an artist or creative building your own space, whether it's a salon, a studio, or an online hub, make sure you're giving people a reason to come back. Consistency creates culture, whether it's events, content, or simply good energy. Keep showing up. And now back to the episode where Blake dives into how he built Sinister Salon, not just as a business, but as a movement. Okay. What's something people have misunderstood about you? Or if there's multiple.
I'm a lot. Like, well, I'm sure there are. You know, I could talk about it all day. There's things in my head that probably aren't true that I feel. I think like everybody does, but I'm a lot, and I'm often confident not because I think things will work, but because I'm interested in seeing how they play out. And so I think a lot of times my confidence is mistaken for arrogance. And I don't think I have all the answers. If I believe in something, I've really kind of done my homework. I'm not like, oh, I've got this feeling, I think this would be cool. It's kind of like I've done checks and balances. I've watched other people. I've weighed what I've done before. There's a lot of experience and observation in that. So I think a lot of times it seems like I'm overly confident, which again, the word for that is arrogant. And, you know, I'm just as scared or worried of failure or whatever as other people. But again, like if you're gonna put your name on something, I think you should own it. And so I really like being like, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm going to do. And when people say, oh, well, that failed, I go, you're right. I learned from that. I'm going to do this next time. And people say, well, that failed. And I go, you're right. I'm going to try this. And they go, well, that failed. And I go, you're right. And about 15 years ago, I learned something. All the people telling me that it failed and they knew it wouldn't work out, don't try anything. So
right.
I'm like, I can't take your criticism. Yeah, not only that, but you have the resources, you're smart, you know, you're afraid of the criticism of other people. And really, once you get past that, you know, I am my own worst critic. There's nothing you can say to me that I haven't thought 20 times and probably in a worse way. But again, in that is freedom. I'm free to fail. Almost everything I've failed at in my whole life, whether it hurt me financially or hurt me emotionally or mentally or hurt me in a business sense, taught me a lesson that you could not teach me because there's a feeling attached to that information, you know, and I'm grateful for it. But I don't, doesn't make me better than other people. It doesn't make me smarter. But I really implore people that if you believe in something and you are confident about it, it doesn't mean that, you know, it's right and everyone else is wrong. But I really implore people to explore those things and follow them all the way through, because that failure is also really valuable, you know.
Yeah, failure is a gift. Anyway. Absolutely. Yeah. Has there ever been a time that you felt like giving up? And if so, what kept you going?
I mean, you know, all the time. And
really?
Well, all the time. I mean, being, you know, I think that's just part of being a human being. You know, am I a good dad? Am I a good partner? Am I a good friend? Am I a good musician? Am I a good boss? Am I good for the community? Am I a good, you know, son? And all these things, like it's pretty, I think it's pretty normal to feel that feeling, but like, it's very rare. If you think you are good at all of those things simultaneously, you're probably delusional, you know. And the reason I say that is because we can all learn and grow and do things like that. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like if people ask me, you know, why doesn't System 6 play more? Why has it been like a year since you played? And the answer is, it's hard. I mean, if I was a local band, I could pop over somewhere, that'd be easy. But my band's just me. I play everything. So I have to get 3 people and we have to agree on a set list. Then I have to go through and pitch shift and retune it for the instruments we're using. I have to go get a rehearsal space. I have to get a hold of the venue that wants to book us and negotiate a price. I have to get 2 hotel rooms. I have to pay for 2 to 3 people's gas. I have to make sure we have merch. I have to take 2 to 3 days off work. I have to make sure somebody's watching my kids. So, you know, you do that and you drive 6 hours and, you know, you play for 20 people, or maybe you play for 200 people, or maybe you sell a bunch of merch, or maybe you sell no merch. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm so happy in my salon with my friends and where I'm at. It's not that I wouldn't tour or wouldn't play out. It's like the idea of like one off or two off shows like that. It is so much work. It is so hard mentally, emotionally, financially. The first time I ever played in LA, I was on the way there, and one of my employees texts me and they're like, "This girl quit. The girl that's covering the next 2 days quit. She left her key. She's gone." So I'm like, we've been open like 7 months. We're slow. We're barely breaking even. And now I'm like, what do we do for the next 3 days? Like, was this responsible for me to go play a show? Like, is this the right thing to do? Am I letting my family down if my business closes? And, am I letting my stylist down if something happens because of this? So I think, it's just hard to weigh those checks and balances and figure out where you want to put effort in and what you want to put effort into. And if you're confident, it stays the same. But if you mature, it should change dynamically at every point in time. Are there bands right now that if they asked me to go on tour, I would drop everything, do it? 50. There's 50 bands. It's knowing yourself and knowing what the sacrifice is and what the reward is and what you're willing to give up.
What lessons have you learned the hard way? I think you've touched on this a little bit, but
I feel like helping people, helping others. One of the things that I truly believe is when you help other people, that is the reward. There is no reward after that.
yeah.
That feeling you get and knowing that you stepped in when you didn't have to, I want someone to do that for me. So that is the reward. That being said, there's a lot of people I've helped that have intentionally taken advantage of me or treated me poorly or lied to me or lied about me. And that sort of stuff is just so frustrating because I think it hurts every time, I think it hurts every time. And then also it weakens the bond you have with other people, because if you trust somebody and they treat you badly or turn on you, you go, oh, well, this person would never do that. And then they do it. And then, and everybody's been through that with relationships, with family, with coworkers, with friends. But, I think the hardest lesson there has just been absolute devastation and heartbreak. I've had friends of 23 or 24 years lie to me and screw me over because they liked a girl I used to date, or because they wanted me to help them book a show or get a job, and I either didn't or couldn't. And it's like, it's really weird. It's like we were friends like 23 years, and this is like, this is enough to just end that. Like, I don't know. The hard part about those lessons are that most people understandably get jaded, and
Yeah.
the hardest lessons I've learned is that you can't get jaded.
I was going to say, it's got to be hard to not be jaded and still have faith in people and still know that, when you can help somebody, that's the right thing to do. It's like sticking your hand in a fire and you get burned and then go, oh, okay, I'm going to stick my hand in that fire again and it's going to be different, That's definitely got to be a difficult thing, but I feel,
Well,
you know me, I'm the same way. That it's, you have to battle.
And again, I'm no saint. There were times where I could help somebody that I didn't, and I regret that too. So it's just like, it doesn't matter what choice you make. It's either going to be good or bad, and it could be either way. And it's not even helping other people. It's just like cooperating with other people. Like, hey, I'm going to put all my time and energy into this thing you care about. By the way, could you help me a little bit? Oh no, like really, like that wears on people.
Sure. So what's coming up next for either System 6 or Sinister Salon?
So, with System 6, I don't know. I want to make more music. I want to work on another album. I want to kind of figure that out. Also, I'm kind of at a place where I sort of want to pivot and do other projects. I like what I do. I'm proud of what I do. There's a lot of people, I don't say this to be insulting. There's a lot of people that do it really well. And unfortunately, I don't feel like I'm one of them. But I'm going to be 44 next month, and there's something weird to me about being like a 44-year-old overweight man jumping up and down on stage, raging at the world,
there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's therapeutic. I love metal bands. I love all that stuff, but
I feel
it
like
just
you're
hasn't
talking
aged
directly
well.
to me when you say that.
No, not at all. No, I mean, I just feel in my personal life it hasn't aged well, and it's not even that it didn't age well. Just like I can do so much more. Like, most of my music's like screaming, whispering, and I'm a great vocalist. I'm a great singer. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and how much longer will I be able to do that? So it's not like one of those things like I'm pivoting because of whatever. I'm just also like weighing the pros and cons. Like, I've got the time, I've got the energy, I've got the resources. Why not just do it?
yeah. And what about with Sinister Salon? What's in the future?
Um, That's tricky. We were looking at expanding. The expansion was stupid expensive, like insanely expensive. So we started looking at other places. That could also happen and work. Our location right now is directly in between the Strip and Fremont. We're right in the center of town. That helps a lot with tourists coming in. It helps a lot with locals because, if we're way down south and you got to drive from north, it could be 45 minutes to an hour in heavy traffic. Um,
Yeah,
this area is being developed really heavy right now and it's getting really busy. And although I feel like we outgrew the space like our second or third year here, it's a prime spot and location. So I don't know if we're going to expand or move or stay or exactly what we're going to do quite yet. I've got about 50 ideas and there's not one that I'm confident enough to be like, oh yeah, that's the next thing we're going to do.
gotcha. If somebody out there is listening and they feel like they don't belong anywhere, what would you tell them?
You cut out, but I think I caught the question. I mean,
I can
again,
repeat it.
and oh, go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah, please.
I was saying if somebody out there is listening and they feel like they don't belong anywhere, I think you and I both came into music and just the doing industrial and the goth, if you will, kind of with that feeling. But if somebody's feeling like they don't belong anywhere, what would you say to them?
I mean, honestly, create your own space. I mean, you've always been able to do that. But, when we were younger, I didn't have the internet. I had the people I knew in my small circle. I didn't have a car I couldn't drive. Now with things like social media and chats and different ways to connect with people, I think that creating groups like that is really easy. One of the things that really worries me about where social media has kind of gone and things like feeling like you don't belong is a lot of people join in groups all the time, everywhere. And it's like, well, I live in Omaha, but I feel really at home and welcome in this San Francisco goth group. And it's like, well, that's good. You should feel that way. You should do that. But are you able to travel there? Are you able to meet any of these people? Are you romanticizing the idea of a concept? You know what I mean? And there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that either. People do that all the time about Paris or Japan or whatever they want. But it's like, I still feel like you should make something in your own area and space, even if it's just you and a couple friends, whether that is like a small little collective of musicians or people who do the same job you do, or people who like the same music you do. But yeah, it's never been easier to create your own space. Like you don't have to fit in. You can make your place.
I love that. Is there anything you wanted to add that we didn't touch on today that you think might be important?
Not that I can directly think of. Like I've got kind of some ideas, but not that I can directly think of. One of the things we talked about earlier is me being a solo musician doing all my albums. I'm a self-taught guitarist, and then all of a sudden where I live, people are like, we need a bassist, and I was like, I don't know how to play bass. And like, it's easy. It's like a guitar. It's missing these strings. Play along. They just needed a body more than they needed talent. So that happened again with drums and keyboards. It happened again where it's like we got a band, but we got nowhere to record. And I was like, hold on, and it's kind of how I got into engineering. But, I think that's what I mean when I say, create a space. It's not only creating a space, but it's like, I've found it very beneficial, and maybe it's not healthy, but I find like it's more simplistic to explain this to people. It's like a survival situation. What do you bring to the table? Oh, well, I can make clothes. What else can you do? I can make clothes. Well, everybody needs clothes. That's awesome. But this girl can make clothes and hunt and start a fire. So it's not a competition. But I always tell people, I think that when you're given the opportunity to do or learn something, you should, because it's so awesome being around people. You're one of my best friends, and you're a good example of it, where it's like, I need this or I need that. If there's mechanical issues, you can count on me. If there's things that I need in certain places, I can count on you. There's things you need in certain places, you can count on me. We're able to trade off and help each other in different ways we never imagined. I know that before you've asked me, hey, my friend's going through Wichita, Kansas. They're trying to book a show. They're not having much luck. I text somebody, and 10 minutes later, your friend's like, thank you. That's awesome. And maybe even they just told him no, but you're talking about not getting a response versus like, we saw it. Okay. But it's just stuff like that. It's like, you can help people in such weird ways. If a friend broke down tonight in Ohio, I don't know anybody out there, but you might, and my stylist might, and my friends might. And I really think just, diversifying your knowledge and your skills and the people, and the places you have lived and visited. I really think that that's one of the few things that will really get you really far ahead in life. I'm a hairstylist. I'm an audio engineer. I MIG and TIG weld. I can operate CNC machines and lathes and plasma torches. And I'm a computer programmer, and I worked in IT. And like, it's really weird how all of those things have nothing to do with each other and help me in every aspect of every other thing I do.
Yeah. Well, cool.
I remember when I was in school, they were selling these really expensive shears to all these young girls, and they're, it's this type of steel and it's that, and you can't get it, and it's rare, and it's from this one location. And I was like, everything you just said is completely untrue. I mean, I know that they're probably like paying you to say that, but this is just grossly untrue,
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how would I know that if I had not worked in a metal shop?
Yeah, that's true. Very cool. Where can people find you? Like social media, like if they want to reach out to you, they're coming through Vegas, they want to get their hair done, or they just want to, reach out and ask you for advice, or they want to check out your music. What are some places that they could do that?
I love meeting new people. I love helping people navigate Las Vegas. I'm really passionate about this city. I know a lot of people in a lot of places. I'm still learning as I go. Sinister Salon Vegas on Instagram, Sinister Salon on Facebook, Sinister Salon Vegas, I think on TikTok, or Sinister Salon, I don't know. Of course, System 6, it's the number 6. I'm pretty easy to find and get a hold of, but those socials, those socials are all in the tens of thousands of followers. So it's pretty easy to find. We're not really, buried at the bottom most of the time. But yeah, you can always message there. Yeah, we're not the top result, but we're not 1,600 down. You put in Sinister Salon, most places know who you're talking about.
Nice.
So
very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Blake, thank you. It was great chatting with you. I really enjoyed it. And we'll touch base again soon. What is it?
Yeah. Let's talk then. Said, look how quiet it's gotten. We had a screaming baby and blow dryers and a bunch of people talking, a bunch of people leaving.
This place is a circus. Real loud when we started, for sure.
As I always like to say, this not my monkeys, not my circus, but it turns out this is my fucking circus. So
100%. And circuses are great. You and I have learned that together.
That's right. I love circuses.
Yeah, especially if it's circus. Only good things happen there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining us. We will. Everybody out there, definitely follow Blake, follow Sinister Salon. Give us a like and a share, and we will see you next time.
Thanks so much.
That's it for this episode of Yes, Quit Your Day Job. Huge thanks to Blake Attebury for sharing his story and showing us what it really means to build community through creativity. If you got something out of this episode, share it with a friend, post it on your socials, and leave us a review. Every like, follow, and share helps us reach more people like you who are ready to take that next step. Want to keep the conversation going? Email us your questions or thoughts at boss@yesquityourdayjob.com. Visit us at yesquityourdayjob.com and follow us on all socials, @YesQuitYourDayJob.
Are you recording me again?
I am recording you again because now you don't feel like you're on. It's literally what we're talking about is that when you don't know we're being recorded, you You have better stories.
Well, yeah, but I was gonna pee.
Oh, well, don't do that on camera.
Oh, I've got a ton of great stories. There's all kinds of cool stuff, but it's hard to gauge what's interesting. What's interesting to me might be boring to other people.
Give us one good Blake story before closing out.
About what?
Just one good Blake story.
Let's see. Trying to think of which one I want to do. Oh, one time, so System 6 is my band, and when I stopped performing live because I had kids, I made it a record label. And so you can see on this poster in here, it says System 6 Music Presents. That was the name of my label. And I booked Green Jelly, and there was this guy I knew from Mexico City. He was really cool, and he owned a comic book shop, but it was like 8,000 square feet. And he only wanted to rent like 1,800, so they just curtained off the rest. And so he rented it, and he's like, we should have shows there. So I was booking a couple bands, and I was like, hey, let's book Green Jelly, and I did. And when they showed up, it had sold out. There was like 1,400 people there. It was supposed to hold like 8. It was fucking nuts. And Bill, their singer, came in and was like, what is this? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, it had a really nice stage and lights and sound. He's like, what is this? And I was like, it's a comic book shop. And he's like, I'm not playing in a fucking comic book shop. I don't know who booked this. This is a fucking comic book shop. We play venues. We're a big band. I've been doing this a long time. A fucking comic book shop. And I was like, well, I'm just going to leave them alone for a while. I'm going to wander off. So I did. Yeah. And they get on stage, and, he's got the ice and all the helmets, and he's got the helmets on, and he gets on stage in the first song. He's like, Green Jelly in a fucking comic book shop. Why didn't I think of this? This is exactly where we belong. Green Jelly in a fucking comic book shop. And it's all he talked about all night, and he was super excited about it. He was fun to work with. They put on a great show. But I always thought, again, like, that's so funny. He was so pissed. He was like, who did this? And then after a while, he's like, there's fucking Kiss action figures 20 feet away from me, dude. This is awesome. And I was like, yeah, it is. It's a fucking comic book shop. You're a comic book band.
I immediately think, knowing Bill and being friends with him, I immediately think of him in a comic book shop. I
thought he'd be fucking psyched, and maybe it was like a long trip, or maybe, I don't know, he's pissed off. Maybe he just didn't like that he didn't have a heads up, but he seemed really angry about it, like the point where I was like, they might not play. And then when they started playing, he was like psyched about it, and I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, of all the bands in the whole world that I thought would fucking bitch about playing a comic book shop, it is not this one. You were the last one, actually. I thought you were the only one that would be like, this is fucking rad, but
I'm pretty sure he owned a comic book shop in LA.
Probably, but right off the get-go, he was like, this is not a venue. This is 2 crates and on cinder blocks. And it wasn't. The stage was as big as my whole salon. It was amazing.
Well, he does have 1,000 band members. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records, I think. So, fitting 1,000 people in a comic book shop, I could see how that could be stressful.
Yeah. But when he played Synthwave down here, I asked him about it, and he's like, I remember that. That was so fucking cool. I do remember that. And I was like, that's so awesome. It was like 15 years ago.
Bill's been a good friend of mine for years, and I think we're going to see him on the podcast at some point.
Good. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to let you go.
Yep. I will talk to you soon.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Right, bye-bye.